Hey guys, it's Amy Head at New Perspectives for Life in Marietta, Georgia. Hope you are doing well this week and having a great week. It has definitely warmed up here in Marietta. It's like 80 degrees today, I think. And so we definitely are feeling a little bit of spring and summer coming in, whereas last week I think we had some colder temperatures again. So it's been nice to see the sun. It's been nice to feel the warmth, and I hope you're having a good week and getting a lot of things accomplished this week. I wanted to share with you a little bit about some things going on with some of the themes going on in my sessions this week so far. I like to bring some ideas to you in case you are going through this with yourself or your family or maybe somebody that you know, and that way maybe some insights that I'm acquiring through these sessions could possibly be helpful for you. So this deals with families, parents, and children, generally older children, children who are like maybe upper elementary school through college, because that's when kids are really beginning to understand that they can have opinions, that they can have thoughts and ideas, and as they get a little bit older into that, they're realizing that maybe some of their opinions or their thoughts or ideas are different than ours, than the parents. And that a lot of times is what sparks a lot of conflict in families. So I wanted to talk briefly about that to see if this might help any situation that you're going through or that maybe somebody that you know is going through. So when families come in and they're in conflict, and I mentioned this before, there's a lot of content around that conflict. There's a lot of process around that conflict. Patterns and ways that they're used to doing things that aren't working for them. But what also comes into play, and what I'm seeing a lot this week with some of my families in sessions, is values. So a lot of times our conflicts with our kids are about the content, but it really goes beyond the content and even sometimes beyond the process to the values that support the content. So for example, if a child or a teen or a college student feels a certain way or thinks something about whatever it is, maybe it's work ethic, maybe it's politics, maybe it's religion, maybe it's social practices, if that child or teen or college student has thoughts, opinions, or beliefs that are in line with the parents' values around that topic, there's usually not a whole lot of conflict because the values that drive both sides are the same. Now, if the values of the child, teen, or college student seem to not line up with the values of the parents, that is where a lot of conflict happens. And it's more about the values sometimes than about the content. Because as a parent, we want our kids, we hope our kids, we are trying to instill in our kids a sense of value in life, a sense of value around politics, religion, work ethic, social life, personal responsibility, on and on and on. And when we feel like our kids are not lining up with the values we are working so hard to instill in them, it can be very threatening to us. It can make us feel vulnerable. It can make us feel like we are not doing our job. And that simply is not true. What happens is, as kids develop and as their brains develop and as their life experiences develop, they begin to develop their own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, attitudes, and even values. We hope it will be in line with ours. Sometimes it's not. So, in thinking about that, when there is conflict, it is really hard to impose our values on someone who is developing theirs. That doesn't mean we shouldn't keep working on providing a sense of value and a system of values, but what it might mean is that we may need to take a step back and engage and allow conversation around whatever it is that is providing the conflict. So for example, if your child looks like they are not following your values in terms of social practices. Maybe it's drugs or drinking. Maybe it's how they interact with people. Maybe it's anger and emotional control in social situations. And we value, being in control and personal responsibility. And we as the parents value not sabotaging ourselves with substances. Okay, so we have this conflict because there are values underneath it that are not lining up. One of the best ways to help address that, I have found in sessions and just in general, is to engage and allow a conversation. ask our kids, what is it that makes you value this behavior over something else? What is it that makes you feel this is important? What is it about this behavior, this value, this attitude that you like, that you want to align yourself with? Because if we can understand where they're coming from, it doesn't necessarily mean we agree with it, and it doesn't necessarily mean we condone it or that we change our mind, but we begin to understand their thought process. And quite honestly, sometimes when we open up the floor for discussion rather than lecture, for discussion rather than shaming or blaming or guilting into what we want them to do, just the opportunity for conversation can break the walls of the conflict and almost align them more with us. Not all the time, but it's much more possible for that to happen than if we're beating them down with our values. Now again, we are the parents. We want them to value things. But if they're 8, 10 years old, that's kind of one thing. If they're 12, 15, 18, 22, that's a different thing. And we have to realize where we need to bring the conversation in and at what point. So I don't know if you agree with that. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. But what I have found is that when we open up the door for conversation rather than slamming the door shut with our values, our kids at least know we want to know what makes them tick. We want to know what's going on in their thought process, even if it differs from ours, because we care about them and we want to understand them. Once that door is open, there is a lot of room for negotiation. There's a lot of room for education. There's a lot of room for listening. Nobody's listening if everybody feels like the other one's just going to slam the door no matter what they hear. But when the doors are open, for whatever the issue, a lot more opportunity for listening, understanding, engagement, negotiation, and even alignment can take place. I hope that's helpful. Leave any comments you have, especially if you disagree with that, or especially if you're going through that and this may be of help to you. I'd love to hear anything you have regarding this topic. Thanks so much. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.